about 5:30 at night where I'm at. There's been a huge roundup of MS-13 gang members, which is interesting since we know there are now over 1,800 sealed indictments. Yesterday, President Trump tweeted out from his Twitter account mentioning this crackdown, and it was ignored by the media. The reason it's significant is because it coincides with these massive indictments and how the Justice Department is actually making strides in cracking down on crime. I haven't heard one word about these arrests on any news channels, and I haven't heard any of them mention the FBI raid of the cadaver clinic in Oregon, which is a huge thing. Two pretty big stories, and their focus is on the sexcapades of the Democrats and trying to drag Republican candidates into the news. The evidence against Roy Moore is pathetic and ridiculous, but the media won't let it go. For those of you who are new to this stuff, MS-13 is a very well-organized gang who infiltrate areas of the United States committing horrendous crimes and getting away with them because of the sanctuary cities and using little-known legal status to shield them. I don't want to go down that road right now, but Democrats are at the center of the rise in MS-13 with the constant roadblocks they keep putting up. Here's why. Democrats have employed the services of these gang members to do their dirty work. Think Seth Rich, think the Clinton body count, and who doesn't want to get their hands stained with actual blood, but would benefit from a liaison with a bunch of murdering thieves who can be hired? That should lead you right back to WikiLeaks and the mentions of various people who mysteriously commit suicide in awkward acrobatic positions and convenient deaths right before testifying. It also shows that these things are instigated by gangs like MS-13. Let's do a little comparison here. Last year, there were only about 220 sealed indictments. Today, just within a week, the indictments are up to 1,800. Just this week, mainstream media started pushing another group of paid witnesses trying to pin the scandal on Judge Roy Moore. Rhinos don't like him either because the people do, so they're doing whatever they can to pretend they have some moral high ground when we know they're just snakes in the grass. Sex scandals didn't bother the Democrats when Bill Clinton was in office, so what's the problem now? Pedophiles run rampant in the MS-13 gangs and in the Democratic circles. The MS-13 gang members are trafficking children and providing sex slaves all over the country. This didn't bother the Democrats last week. Why are they so appalled now? Even the pathetic Jessica Tarlov appeared on Hannity last night with Tommy Lahren and couldn't get the connection between enabling sex abusers and the sex offender. She did what she normally does and kept repeating enabling and abusing aren't the same thing. So I guess, under Jessica Tarlov, it's okay to be the lookout as long as you're not the one actually raping women and children. Under her theory, watching is fine. And so is the cover-up. It's all on the perpetrator. Wow, Jessica, you are a moron. While all of this is going on, wigged out Maxine Waters goes to an award show and starts crowing Impeach 45 when she should actually be kicking Al Franken and the Democrats in the nuts. Apparently, she thinks it's okay to grab a woman, take a picture while groping her while she's sleeping, joke about it later, and then write a book about it. However, if you try to tell the truth about groupies following around celebrities, standing in line waiting to be groped, you've committed the ultimate sin. Jessica Tarlov tries to shamelessly put President Trump's name in every discussion just to jab at him while excusing the behavior of every deviant Democrat. It is so obvious. She even used the term noble when she was discussing Al Franken. These scandals are just smoke and mirrors covering up the activity behind the scenes, which is clearly making Hillary Clinton nervous. During her last interview, she tried to push the indictments and the investigation to the side, saying President Trump and his administration are trying to deflect from the real issue, which is the Russian collusion. Obviously, someone forgot to give Hillary the memo that even in the Russian collusion investigation, the fingers are still pointing right back at her. Think about this. According to Q, on 4chan, MS-13 was encouraged to infiltrate the United States and got support from our own government through Trader 44, Hillary, and the CIA. These guys are involved in human trafficking and child sex trafficking, and they've been linked to the murder of children, and they're still walking around freely. We've even got MS-13 gang members in Durango, Colorado, and liberals' heads are so stuck in the sand, they refuse to acknowledge them. Instead, they provide housing, food, clothing, furniture, whatever they need, including driver's licenses in the state of Colorado, and they're using taxpayer money to fund these people. $1.5 billion. The San Juan Citizens Alliance sounds good. It's in Durango, but it's a cover for Trader 44's training camps where liberals are being churned out by the thousands every 6 weeks. It's a liberal army. Rather than report this type of news, the mainstream media is focused on President Trump drinking Fiji water and literally tried to contact the water company for a comment on whether it takes one hand or two to drink from the bottle. There's an entire story on this. Seriously, I'm not making this up. Mark Dice just did a video about this exact story that Newsweek put out on his last video. This is what they think is news in the mainstream media. And although the mainstream media is saying Democrats are abandoning the Clinton crime family, in reality, it's just trying to get away from these indictments. They're aware Hillary's in deep trouble and Trader 44 isn't far behind. Yes, there's a civil war within the Democratic Party, and it's been put there by the Trump administration and conservatives like me and you. If our three-lettered organizations were really doing their jobs, people like Maxine Waters are going to start claiming senility so they can get out of prison. What better way to hone in the fact she's off her rocker than making public displays of insanity and getting on camera? President Trump is clearly doing his job with these new arrests and sealed indictments. And let's not forget how the media is ignoring the plane and helicopter crash near the Rothschilds estate today, and it killed 4. We're still trying to figure out who the people were in that crash. It may not be relevant to these coincidences, but it keeps happening to the Democrats and the crime families. And FYI, the Democrats are over the Clintons, and they're going to be trying to push this Gillibrand woman. They don't have anyone else to run. They're pathetic losers, and if we conservatives stick together, we'll...
A Democratic senator, often named as a potential presidential contender in 2020, is taking major heat from Clinton loyalists tonight after declaring that Bill Clinton should have resigned from the presidency following the Lewinsky scandal that triggered his impeachment and other accusations of sexual misconduct. Chief Washington correspondent James Rosen tells us about the latest controversy in the politics of sexual harassment.
Occupant of the New York Senate seat previously held by Hillary Clinton, Democrat Kirsten Gillibrand told the New York Times she now believes President Clinton
Indeed, I did have a relationship with Ms. Lewinsky.
Should have resigned amid the sexual misconduct charges that rocked American politics 2 decades ago.
Things have changed today, and I think under those circumstances, there should be a very different reaction.
For good measure, Gillibrand broadened her condemnation to include the Republican incumbent.
And I think in light of this conversation, we should have a very different conversation about President Trump.
Prominent liberals at the Times, The Atlantic, and MSNBC have demanded a reckoning with the Clinton era when progressives and feminists defended the president and in some cases attacked his female accusers, among them Juanita Broaddrick, who claimed Mr. Clinton raped her in a hotel room.
Thank you for welcoming the President of the United States.
The former president had stumped for Gillibrand, prompting Philippe Reines, the acid-tongued former spokesman to Mrs. Clinton, to tweet with reference to the president's acquittal at his impeachment trial. Senate voted to keep President Clinton, but not enough for you, Senator Gillibrand. Over 20 years, you took the Clintons' endorsements, money, and seat. Hypocrite. Interesting strategy for 2020 primaries. Best of luck.
Boy, I think there's just a special place in hell for people like that. She has turned on the man who probably did more with his wife for her than anyone alive.
President Truman is bright and cheery, cane and all.
The historical reputations of presidents can change. Harry Truman left office with dismal approval ratings, but starting with Merle Miller's Plain Speaking in 1972 and culminating with David McCullough's Pulitzer-winning 1992 biography, the 33rd president rose steadily in public estimation. Conversely, disclosures by JFK's mistresses over several decades have somewhat tarnished his legacy. Arthur Herman is the author of a new book about the 28th president, entitled 1917, Lennon, Wilson, and the Birth of the New World Disorder.
I think this is an inflection point for Bill Clinton's legacy, and I think more and more what we're seeing and historians are going to see is that he's someone who diminished that office, and that his legacy will be very different from the one that we had thought when he left office.
Bill Clinton did not respond to our request for comment. Of course, he has long denied that rape allegation. George H.W. Bush also faces new scrutiny this week, as several women have now accused him of groping them, including one of them, Brett, who said the incident took place during his presidency.
Yeah, it's an amazing time. We are hearing more from Hillary Clinton about why she thinks she did not get to the office her husband once held.
Yes, the former Democratic nominee has told the left-wing magazine Mother Jones that Russian interference was, quote, one of the major contributors to the outcome of the 2016 campaign.
I think that there are lots of questions about its legitimacy, and we don't have a method for contesting that in our system.
Mrs. Clinton also cited registration issues and problems at polling stations as a major factor in her loss of Wisconsin, the state no Republican had carried since 1984, and which Mrs. Clinton, Brett, was the first major party nominee to skip campaigning in during a general election since 1972.
More on all this with the panel. James, thank you.